Hello and welcome back to the Tap In Tap Up podcast. I am your host, Alex. In this podcast, we tap into discussions around mental wellness, spirituality, and culture, and tap out of the patterns that no longer serve us. Amen. How y'all doing today, this week? I am so giggly all the time. I'm not going to apologize for it because it is who I am. But I'm doing okay. It is getting to the end of March, and I feel like whoever I talk to, they're all kind of making April their like get it together month, which is pretty normal, I think, for the year, going from January to now. But April will also be my month to get it together. I'm actually moving soon, so in about a month or so. So I need to start figuring out what I'm keeping, what I'm giving away, what I'm selling. It just made me tired thinking about that. But other than that, I'm actually doing really good this week. I had some more time. Well, actually, I had a lot of tests to take this week, but having finished those assignments, I feel a lot more free in my mind, so I'm feeling better. Last episode we did meditation for dummies. If you haven't listened to it, please do that. Show it some love. But we talked about meditation and mindfulness and the building blocks of starting it out if you hadn't ever tried it, or if you were interested or did it before but didn't know really what you were doing. Last episode we just did a really good crash course into what it means to do meditation, bare bones. You know, it's a very like augmented. It's augmentable. I made up a word just now, but it's augmentable in the way that it can be used for different things. But I don't think we talk enough about just what it is by itself. So I loved it. It was great to like recap it for myself. So yeah. Moving on to the inbox. If you don't know what the inbox is the place where you can send me your questions, concerns. Well, not really your concerns. I mean, if there are concerns, please let me know. But really for your questions, thoughts, comments on the show, you can send your questions to my DM, just Alex today, or heartofshema@gmail.com. If you have a longer advice question, you can switch out names, or I can give you a name. But yes, just to preface, once again, I am not a licensed professional, but I can tell you what I would do. So yes, we do have one question this week in the inbox, and here it is. Is it really new levels, new devils? Or are the same devils following you to new levels? I really appreciate this question. It's funny because a few years ago, I would live by the new levels, new devils phrase. I think it was a title of a podcast episode from the Friend Zone. They're a mental health podcast. They're amazing. My favorite podcast probably out there. But they had an episode called New Levels, New Devils. I think it was featuring Shameless Maya, if you know her. And I played that episode at least 3 times now. Like I will rarely replay an episode of a podcast, but I have replayed that episode over the years to like go back to it because it was so good. My answer to this today is that I think it's both, honestly, because I do believe that our quote unquote devils, like, let's unpack this, because I think when we're talking about these new devils, we're talking about, you know, obstacles, things in our way. It reminds me of kind of this idea of being in a cycle. So even though, let's say, because I do struggle with like self-sabotage, let's say that's a devil of mine, right? Self-sabotage. And I experienced self-sabotage in high school with my relationships, right? That's one level. And let's say I aged, hypothetically, got a job, and I experienced self-sabotage in the workplace, in my job. I don't want to say getting a job is a new level or a higher level, but let's just say it's a new level to your life, you know? And so even though in high school I quote unquote got over self-sabotage, it might still circle back to me in the workplace, you know, and how I work and how I put myself out there. So I feel like in that way, there are some devils that will follow you into your new levels. But I also think that generally, like, yeah, like when you glow up, might be an episode about glowing up or something, but this whole question could be an episode, honestly. But there are ways in which, as you increase your frequency and you just glow up, whatever terms that we use, you know, to talk about becoming better people or getting to higher echelons of status, like there are new situations that will come up and new things that could go wrong. So I think it's both. I think that when there are new levels, there will be new devils, but the old ones will also come back, and you have to learn how to master that new level, you know. So yes, thank you for the question. If you guys again want to send a question, you can send it to my email or my DM. I don't have a preference. If it's super long, just send it to the email because it's better. It'll look better on the email. But this week we do have an episode guest, the one and only Esther Cho, a really good friend of mine from college. We tap into really what's going on right now in the US. And we touch on a lot of things as it relates to Asian Americanness in the US and what that means and just how to show up well for minority groups right now. So it's good if you are not a minority. If you are a minority, there's nuggets all around. And I would love to hear what you guys think about this topic. So please let me know. Hit me up. Comment on the post about the episode, what you think about it, because I actually am very interested to know what you guys think about this episode. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, you will hear the voice of me and Esther. Okay, it's time for the tap in, and I am here with my beautiful, beautiful friend, goddess of my timeline. I just made that up on the spot. Her name is Esther. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Alex.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day in New York,
Yes,
so I'm enjoying
New York
that.
queen.
Yeah.
People that don't know, who are you, Esther?
So, yes, I'm Esther, and I live in Brooklyn, New York. And I met Alex in college because we both did some serving together for the Lord, and
Yes.
yeah, we just love that. And so I do like account management for like a marketing tool kind of. It's really fun, and yeah, I'm just living my best life, and here I am as a guest today.
Yes. Would you consider yourself Korean American?
Yeah.
Okay. So Esther's my Asian friend.
Yes.
Funny, but just to preface this conversation, we're not speaking for the Asian people or the Black people. We're speaking for Esther and Alex. So we're gonna be touching on what's been going on in the world right now, or I think it's been happening, but you know what's being brought to light in terms of Asian American hate crimes being on the rise in the media. And I felt like it was right to bring somebody on who I was comfortable talking to about what's been happening, just to be able to give people some space to kind of process what's been going on if they've been seeing like articles or a lot of Instagram flooding, you know, of so much messaging. And I just wanted to touch on, I don't know, maybe a part of the conversation and see what we can do in this space, you know. So last episode I talked about being mindful, and that's something that I talk about a couple times, being in the present moment, right? And I think that something I want to get out of these conversations I have with people and also with myself is like, we're talking about being present in the moment, and I I think when you practice it enough, or when you really tap into the concept of being present, you're also thinking about what's going on around you in the culture, you know, and having a cultural awareness. I think part of why people honestly have a hard time sitting down and just being quiet is because they're distracting themselves from what's going on. And
Yeah.
it's so easy now to just turn off Instagram and just not see it for the day because you see so many things you don't want to see anymore. You're uncomfortable, you know, but part of working on mindfulness and working on being present is also not dissociating from what's going on in front of you. And I feel like a lot of people, not calling anybody out, but a lot of people are just kind of
A lot of y'all be.
a lot of y'all just out here, just like ignoring what's going on and thinking that it's outside of them and it's nothing that they can do about it. And so I think something that I always start off with is having conversations, because I know they have thoughts, you know, if you don't think you have thoughts about it. And so taking an assessment of what thoughts you do have, being able to process those safely with people or journal about it. Like, I'd like to kind of push this conversation of showing up, you know, and what that looks like for people who might not have considered themselves able to before or didn't have a place in the conversation, you know. So I want to ask you first, as someone who is Korean American, how have you been doing just in general? And also, like, what's been your experience with people trying to empathize with you and maybe what you could be feeling in this season? And that could be the good experiences and also not so great ones. Like, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So like in terms of recently, I guess, I feel like I've been really sad because I think Asian hate crimes were like pretty much, they've always been there, but not I guess reported or really like publicized. But in the start of COVID, obviously it started like in China, so that was a huge thing in terms of like racism. I know like I like know people personally who were getting like attacked, but also just saw like a rise in that. And because I live in New York, even before I moved here in the summer, a lot of people were telling me not to move here because they were like, you know, you're Asian, and like, did you see all the people that are getting like attacked in New York and LA and all these big cities? And it just sucks because like the whole thing is, it starts in China, but I feel like Asian people are always seen as foreigners anyway. Like, for example, I've never even been to China, and I haven't been to Korea in how many years, but like, you know, people like would associate the two. It's like, it was just insane. So, I mean, that's kind of like, I think where a big spike happened. But in terms of like recently, there's been more Asian hate crimes. And also obviously with the shooting in Atlanta, I think that was what really set everything off in just like awareness and finally kind of people like coming out and sharing their own experiences. So like just seeing that, it makes me so sad because it's like my community, you know, like like when I see those people, and I think I like, honestly, when I can like speak for the Asian community, like we just see like our own parents, and we see like our own like aunties and families, because like, they just work really hard to provide for us, especially like first gen immigrants, like, and immigrant children. Like, we know this best. We've seen our parents like literally kill themselves to like give us this better life that they've always wanted. And it was just like so heartbreaking to see, especially because it was targeted, you know, racially and stuff. So, it's just been really sad. And it's made me think of my own like past trauma and experience, in that as well. Just been like, kind of not the best like month, I guess, but, to be very honest.
Thank you for sharing. There's an aspect of this conversation that I feel in my heart I want to like confess to the people. Like, I don't want to come across like I'm just all knowing and like I'm above all the work. But I think for me personally, like, I'm not someone that was always on it in terms of like what justice looks like for Asian Americans in the United
Yeah.
States.
Yeah.
And I think a part of that was a lot of the cultural stereotypes around being Asian. There is this like gentleness and like invisibility almost. That's kind of what it translates to, you know, where like we focus so much on this black-white dynamic that other people get lost in the mix.
Yeah.
And I've fell short of that, I'll be honest. Like I have not been someone that's been like so culturally on it that like I'm always aware of what's happening. I think that's like necessary. I'm like 21, but like this moment of boosted awareness has made me realize like in what ways it's not always on my mind, you know. How has that stereotype affected you growing up or even today? Like
no, I really appreciate you saying that, because I mean it's really true. Like I think maybe like honestly in my own experience, like my like racism and all this like prejudice towards Asian Americans is not really validated. And it's not really seen as like real racism. It's more seen as like, oh, like they were joking kind of, but like I'll get into it. But those things have like literally traumatized me, like affected my whole life and even like my identity and finding and appreciating like my culture. And yeah, like I think sometimes it's hard to, or people like try to measure it out. Like I've been seeing a lot of like this oppression Olympics kind of thing going on where it's like, oh, but like, why is that even like a competition? Like, why would we be like, why, you know what I mean? Like, oh, X person has it worse. Like so like, this person is also having it like bad, you know? I mean, it's like, I mean, if we're going to compete, it should not be for oppression. I don't think, you know what I mean? And I think that is like, it really does stem like from like this white supremacy system. And it's like pinning all these minorities against each other, and we're doing it, you know, that's like the gag. But yeah, so in terms of my own experience, I actually shared it like for the first time publicly, like this like last week, just because I thought maybe for once, like I saw hope for like change, I guess. And so basically, yeah, growing up, it's hard because the only people that understand the Asian American experience is Asian Americans. Like my family in Korea, they're never going to understand what I'm going through or what I had to go through because they live in Korea. It's all Korean people. You know what I mean? They're the majority. Nobody's being racist to them because they're Korean. But, and like with Americans, like, I guess like white people, they're not going to understand. They're the majority, you know? But when it comes like, yeah, so that's something that I realized too. Like it's a very, like niche group, you know? But the thing is, Asian Americans, I feel like have experienced the same things with like all this racism and stuff. So basically like, yeah, growing up, I went to like I lived in a white neighborhood, white school, which was already horrible, but sorry. But, like, yeah, I heard from A to Z, like like, you know, the maybe not as traumatizing ones to the ones that like have like deeply scarred me. You know, they like make fun of your eyes or like, all these things they see in the movies, you know, even things like, oh, you're Asian, you're good at math. Like to some people, it's like, oh, that's not racism because it's like not a bad thing. Like it's a compliment. But at the same time, like it's still this stereotype where they just group you together. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah. And actually it is really harmful. Like whether it's like, you know, there is I don't want to put it like on a spectrum of like, oh, 1 to 10, this is less harmful. Like, no, I think it's still harmful. And like, you know, things like, oh, you're good at karate or you eat this or that, or like you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like so many things that I honestly would consider like microaggressions, that add up, you know, and it like makes you want to hide yourself. Like I've tried to like minimize those aspects of myself like so much because I just don't want to stand out. I don't want to hear it, you know, and in turn, like you have to like hide away, you know, and I just don't think that people understand that what they're saying is so harmful. Like that person who says that racist thing to me, he or she is not like 10 minutes later, they're going to forget that they even said that. Like they don't give a shit, but I'm going to remember that shit for the rest of my life. Yeah. Like I remember literally every single comment, microaggression, joke, whatever it may be, like since I was like in middle school, and I'm 22 now, like it affects me, you know, and it makes me feel like, it just makes me feel like I need to not be so Korean so that they won't say that. And it's just so harmful, because for me especially, like I didn't really start to like embrace my culture, my like Koreanness, until I was in college, which is like a really long time, you know? And so like it just damages your true identity, I guess. And but I just don't think that people see it that way. And to be honest, like I even thought I was being too sensitive, because when I would react, they would be like the first thing they'd say would be like chill out, or like it's a joke kind of thing. Yeah. Wouldn't be an apology. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, like I'm being dramatic. Like, let me, like, you know, I constantly have to tell myself, like, no, Esther, like, they're just kidding. Like, they don't mean it. You know what I mean? Like, I had to constantly comfort myself, whether they mean it or not. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, because the person who's receiving that is like affected by it. Like, it's constantly, yeah. And to me, I think maybe I am a little bit more, like, whatever, sensitive to those things, because it will like play in my head for like ever, clearly, you know. Like I wish I could just brush it off and whatever, but like I can't, and I think that's significant too. But yeah, definitely have had those experiences. And yeah, I just feel like maybe for the first time, the reason why I felt kind of like brave enough to share it so personally, like on social media, was because like for the first time, I felt like I was being seen as a Korean American. Like my struggles were actually being acknowledged. It's because all of this stuff is coming out, and all these Asian people, all these Asian Americans are coming out with their own story. And I'm like, am I reading my story? Like, why do we all go through this shit, you know? And so I thought maybe if I share my story, like it could just educate one more person to know that, like, you could see all this shit on the news and be like, dang, that sucks. But when someone you know comes out with like a personal story, or someone you know says that they've gone through that, it's like, oh shit, this is real, you know? Yeah. And I thought, like, maybe if one person could just learn from me, like my story, like that would be enough. So I was like, maybe I should like share it too. But yeah, definitely it's been a journey.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for being vulnerable on social media and also here. But I feel like, you know, that does cost you something. And I want to acknowledge that. But even in psychology right now, I'm learning about prejudice actually, and how like one of the biggest remedies to it, or what lessens it the most, is intergroup contact, which is just knowing or being around people that are experiencing that thing, you know? So you're right. Like for me, I'm like, y'all should know, like y'all read history, y'all know history, y'all seen the TV, y'all know what's on the news. Why do you need like that friend, you know, in that group to like, for it to break in your heart? But psychologically, that's kind of what we need, is have that connection or relationship with somebody who is going through it, quote unquote. And so, you touched on microaggressions, and I kind of want to segue, because I feel like something I want to talk about is what I've been seeing on social media a lot, which is checking on your Asian friends. And it reminds me of something similar that happened last summer when the BLM protests were at its peak. The same sentiment happened of like, you know, check on your Black friends, make sure they're okay. And this second might be rough, but I feel like there are times that I'm like, yes, there's a group of people being affected right now, but if we have hearts, it should be affecting all of us, so check in everybody,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do appreciate this specificity in who we should be caring about and giving attention to. Like, that's important. So I want to know your thoughts over, like, on a broad level. Like, what are your thoughts on the posts or the culture of now, like, check on your Asian friends now,
Yeah. So, right. The funny thing is, I got like probably like 200 or more messages like in this past week, which is a lot. And like, before this, even the whole like check on your ex, whatever friends, like, I think the concept is really good, but at the same time, it's like you, who I haven't spoken to in 10 years, randomly being like, thinking of you know what I mean? It's like, save it. Like, where were you the whole 10 years kind of? So like, I think there is that too. But I mean, which is funny for me because that actually was what made me feel so much better. Like people reaching out to me, and I didn't think it would because I thought it would just be like where were you, kind of thing. But I don't know why, like for me this time, it was just like, it was exactly like what I didn't even know I needed. Like, especially those people who I hadn't even spoken since high school, like reaching out to me with like the most like amazing messages, like so genuine. Like, it wasn't just like a dang, that sucks, like, sorry. It was like, I couldn't even describe it. Like, yeah, I don't know. It made me just feel like people are finally seeing me. They're finally seeing us, like, as community, and like our pain from like everything I kind of had to like hide away or like carry or like disregard or whatever. And, like, I think it is really, sometimes it's awkward as well, because you don't know like what to say, or and like you're kind of like, how do I bring it up? But at the same time, like I think like there is like a benefit into doing that. And it for me, like, it just meant the world to me. It made me feel like seen for some reason. Like, I don't know, maybe because like no one's ever reached out to me and affirmed and my like Korean American journey, like struggle and journey. Like, that is a completely new topic. So that was just like, I just felt really heard and seen, especially after I was really vulnerable about it, like on the internet, and to hear all these people saying like, don't stop sharing. Like, I learned so much from your post, and like, I'm educating myself. Like, hearing that was like everything to me, because, like, I didn't really want to share that stuff. Like, I don't like to, like, I'm really passionate about social justice, but I've never shared anything about like my personal journey as a Korean American with like people. But just to hear people being like you are educating me with that is like, okay, fine. Like, that is so great. And it's funny that you're asking me that, because I've even checked my friends who didn't check on me, which is something that I didn't think I would do. But like people who have never, I haven't even spoken to, like 6+ years, were like reaching out to me. But I'm going to be honest, like my immediate friend group, like wasn't, it was silence, nothing. And I was like, they don't really, I mean, nobody has to do anything, but like, you could clearly see that I'm like, so like hurt by all of this. Like, I'm posting like crazy on my social media. Like, I just posted this huge vulnerable thing, and like, you guys don't even like say anything. Also, they weren't reposting anything. Like, not saying that you have to be the social justice like activist, but it does not take much to like reshare one thing, or if you're not on social media, then just send me a text or something. Like, you guys are my friends, and we're not strangers. Like, we love each other. And I wasn't hearing shit from them. And that really made me so sad, because I'm like, why are these people that I haven't spoken to in 10 million years reaching out to me with like these essays, and y'all can't even say one thing to me? And I called them out. Like, it was, I've never done that before, especially like with something so sensitive like this topic. But, I just realized, like, I've come to a point in my life where these things are super important to me. And if you're not going to be here and support me in something so like fragile like this, or like so big like this, like why I don't even want you to support me in anything else. Like this is, yeah, like so it was so important to me. So yeah, ironically enough, like I checked people who were not checking on me too. So yeah. But yeah, I think there are good, like I think checking on your friends is really important, and I think there's a good way to do it, and it's not making it about you, but just like, you know, just genuinely being like, I hear you, like, you know, something like that, instead of being like, I that, like, no, like you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I really appreciate you unpacking that, because I was here, you know, I wasn't expecting us to be on the same page, but I'm happy we're not, because it's two different experiences. So I kind of want to show that difference in opinion, but I feel like it makes sense. I'll get to why it makes sense now. But for me, why I called it a microaggression earlier is because I would be up in my room, you know, feeling a type of way. And because, you know, what's happening, I live right outside a main road where protests was happening every day. Right. So I just kind of felt that on me. And the messages I would get.
Yes, tell me the messages.
It would just be like a two-liner. It would just be like praying for you, or, hey, Alex, like, I see you. And I'm like, where's the camera? Like,
cut the camera.
You know, and so I think I was having a hard time because there, in the Black experience, especially now being here for a while, like it's always evident to everybody, even if we don't want to acknowledge it. And so, like, why is it now that you want to just show up and like it was like to make them feel good, you know? And the difference I'm finding now that I'm hearing you is that I think, one, people weren't made aware of how down bad it is, you know, just to be like a little humorous, but I don't think people were on to how intense or serious situation was for Asian Americans in the US. And so I think that understanding of the growth and understanding of what's happening led to a more intact, thoughtful message towards you, because it's like, hey, like, maybe no one's ever checked on Esther for being Asian or for being someone that could be experiencing something. She might know somebody, you know? And so, like, I think the heart of people's intentions were a little bit more pure, because sadly it's newer to people, you know? Whereas like, I feel like with this Black-white dynamic, it was very much like all right, I'm feeling bad today, let me just text Alex something, like. And that's kind of how it felt. It was like, what is today from 4 years ago or 8 years ago? Or, you know, like, what is the difference, you know? But we haven't.
Why? Because there's all these protests happening now. Now you want to be like, right.
Yeah, and I feel like we haven't seen I think even there was a lot of firsts this month for like Asian American protests. And like in that in itself, which is crazy, because it's not like we said earlier, it's not that historically Asian Americans haven't been discriminated against, but we're seeing more of a modern take on what it means to stand up for Asian Americans within and outside the community. So we love to see it. And I, like you said, there is there's a way you do it, you know, that's thoughtful and intentional, and it means a lot. And I think, I don't want to defend, you know, the close friends, but I think sometimes we might think that, like Esther knows that we're good. Esther knows that I care, you know, and assuming that you know that they're conscious about you when you might not know that, or I don't know, like, and that might not be something on your agenda to like figure that out, you know, but all you're seeing is the inaction, you know, and so that obviously will take a toll, you know.
No, that's true. I mean, like you're saying though, that's a good point. I think it's a different dynamic, because that's what I'm saying, like, for the first time I felt seen, like, as a Korean American, because it's never really been talked about on this scale. And it sucks that it has to be like crime and like murder and shit that finally brings this stuff to light. And so, yeah, I guess it was just like the acknowledgement. And I think if I was getting messages like what you got, like one-liners, whatever, I'd be like, don't even message me. But like, because it was just so, like, literally people were writing like paragraphs, I couldn't even believe it. I was, yeah. And when people say like, I'm going to like change now. Like, I'm going to work harder to be educated about this. It's like, that's what it's all about, you know? So yeah, those were really encouraging and helped me realize like there might be hope for us for the world.
I do think that's also part of it is like in our reaching out and in our activism, you know, there has to be some action behind it, you know, or like show me that you want to be better, you know, or you want to do better. And that could be as simple as, you know, you letting me know that like you want to learn more and, you know, you're going to take the time and do that. Like that, like hearing that, it for me, it feels good to know that someone's doing that, you know, because we don't require a lot from people, especially because most of us aren't murderers, you know. I think we have this thing where it's like, oh, it's not me, like I'd never do that, so like I'm just gonna keep being me. But no, there's always inner work we can do to like increase our awareness of our unconscious biases when we're around people who are making comments or making jokes that aren't, you know, are stereotypical and might come across as nice, but like you said earlier, it's grouping you in a way that kind of dehumanizes and I don't know, like erases a nuance to the Asian American experience.
Yeah.
And I feel
like it starts with that, but then it just gets worse and worse and worse, you know.
And something you mentioned earlier was that, and I can relate to this, but when you are conscious of what stereotypes are out there, you will like bend yourself or shrink yourself away from those things. But what if that's a part of who you're supposed to be, you know? Not because you're Asian, because you're Black, but because that's just who God made you to be, you know? And so I think a side effect socially of racism, xenophobia, all these things is like, it's holding us back from who we really could be as people, you know? And so people feel kind of outside of a crime scene, or they're not connecting with, I don't know how you couldn't, but not connecting with the mass shooting or something. Like socially, it's doing work, even when it's not evident or people aren't dying. Like these things are doing work against these communities, you know, and it's not good work. And so part of having conversations is dismantling those stereotypes, you know, or even having a fullness in those stereotypes that it's not just Esther being Asian, but it's Esther being Esther, you know, Alex being Alex. Like it's not something that's like, and that's where I want to get to, where I'm not afraid to be a certain kind of Black person because that's who I want to be. And that's who I think I'm meant to be, you know? I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
No, I agree completely, because like you're saying, it takes away from who we're supposed to be. Forget even forget race, just like the person inside of us, like that God made us to be, like I don't know, for example, okay, let's just do the whole math thing, like Asians are supposed to be good at math. When I hear that shit, it's like I don't want to be good at math because I'm trying to break the stereotype. But at the same time, like then at the same time, if I'm not good at math, I feel like I'm not Asian enough. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's like this inner battle and you lose either way. Because I'm like, I don't want to fit those stereotypes because I don't want people to say that anymore. But then it's like, well, am I really Asian if I don't fit it? Because that's what everybody's saying. Like, I mean, and that it's instilled like at a young age. Like, I mean, I haven't really heard that joke lately, but I heard it all the time when I was younger. And, you know, that's when you're like absorbing all this stuff. You don't even know who you are when you're younger. Like, and yeah, just like, it like fucks with your mind, you know? Yeah.
Is there anything you want to leave the people for the tap in this week? Any final thoughts?
No, I guess like just be more aware like of humans, I guess. When I went to this protest, they were saying like they were quoting someone. They kept saying like, we need to grow our souls. And it just was like a reminder to like, just because it's not happening to you, or like, you know, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And it doesn't mean that like you shouldn't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel that maybe sometimes, I mean, I do that too. Like if it doesn't affect me directly, it's like, well, why do I really need to like tap into that much? But I think like, I mean, as a Christian, for sure, like God calls us to love everyone, and also just like, especially, you know, he really loved the marginalized communities and stuff. And I feel like right now there are so many marginalized communities, not even just the Asian experience because it's happened recently, but there's just, yeah. And like, just because you're, you know, you're not in that or whatever, like, doesn't mean that you shouldn't care. I think it's really about, yeah, growing our hearts to empathize with anyone who's really like in pain or going through something or struggling. And yeah, I think that's how like the world will grow and it will finally bring change. Because something else I thought about was like, when I was hearing all these like racist things when I was younger from other like little kids, it's kind of like, how do they even know to say that? Like, how do they even know where that's coming from? And to be honest, I feel like a lot of it stems from like who they look up to, like whether it's their parents or people older than them. Like we're the ones that are going to be like having kids, you know, and things like that. Like, that's why for the first time I feel like maybe this generation could bring a little bit of a change, because we are like more educated, more like woke, I guess. Yes. So like we need to build that up. And I think it really does stem from like seeing everyone, you know, not just like people next to you or the people that look like you or whatever it may be. Like, yeah. So I guess, yeah, just being more mindful, like you said, yes, and growing our souls to really like, yeah, see all these communities and not just our own, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you so much, Esther, for coming on. I am keeping you for the tap out, but we will take a quick break to do
yes.
we'll do the small business shout out and then to the tap out. So stay tuned. This week for the small business shout out, we are talking about another Asian American small business. Actually, she's a content creator. Her name is Maddie. You can find her on Instagram at Cafe Maddie. That's CAFEMADDY. And Maddie is a content creator online. She's a chef. She is making awesome food content. I've been browsing her work and it is so relaxing to watch these cooking videos. If you guys didn't know, you shouldn't be surprised, but I love food videos on my explore page. So my explore page is basically food clips and drag race clips, and that's it. So I'm always happy to include more food content on my page. I'm getting hungry listening to myself talk about her makes me hungry, so I'm gonna try to get this done because I'm on her page right now and it just looks so good. She does a variety of dishes. She has a website that has all her recipes on it, but also she has Instagram videos that kind of highlight the how-to. She also does online kimchi classes, so if you ever want to make kimchi, you can book her for an hour and she will teach you face-to-face, virtually, how to cook kimchi. If you guys are interested, like I said, you can find her at Cafe Maddie Instagram. I will link her stuff down below. She also has, like I said, a website and also on YouTube. She does some vlogs, cooking videos, and so I don't need much when food's involved to be sold, but I'm definitely sold on this. So yeah, so if you guys want to check her out, you can look in the description. Okay, we're back. It is time for the tap out. I'm still with Esther.
Hi,
I asked her on the fly to give me something, share something you want to tap out of right now.
Okay, so the thing that I want to tap out on is chocolate covered almonds. The hold that they have on me is crazy.
I'm dead. Like, I have to tap in because I haven't had chocolate almonds.
No, they're so addicting. I go through so many, and because I'm like, oh, it's an almond, like it's healthy, whatever. Like I will eat so many of them, and it's just I think if I ate it in moderation, it'd be good. But I think I eat like maybe like 40 a day. It's terrible. Like I'm not even exaggerating.
Do you eat any other like junk food? Is it like?
Yes, I do. I eat like so many things, but I eat those like I can actually eat those in moderation, but these I just can't.
That is so
It's
funny.
like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I eat like maybe 15.
Where do you get them?
At any store, Alex, please. I can't believe you've been sleeping on these.
I gotta tap into these almonds while you tap. Oh, I'm so happy you told me this.
It's like a thick layer of chocolate covering an almond.
Yeah, I love
you know.
almonds.
Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna send you the link to my favorite ones.
Please.
Yeah,
Okay, this was supposed to be a tap out. It's Esther's tap out. It's my tap in.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Esther, for coming on the show. I really deeply appreciate it. And I know you're a busy girl, working the world.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Do you want to plug yourself? We can find you.
Yeah, okay. You can find me on Instagram at EstherCho5. And you can also find me on Twitter with the same handle.
Awesome.
Wait, you didn't say your tap out.
Oh, I should have one too.
Yeah, come on now.
Okay, I did plan some, but I was gonna like let you do yours and then be done. I had two.
Go.
Okay, so I guess my tap out that I wasn't gonna share, but I guess I will this week. This week I had so I'm a lead for like a staff team, and every month I plan a staff bonding activity. And so this month I didn't know what I wanted to do because I was running out of ideas. And I just ordered this game, We're Not Really Strangers, last week, and it came in. And I didn't want to play it with them because I didn't think they would like it. But no one told me that. Like, every idea I've made so far, like, they've loved. But this idea was just something I knew I would like so much that I just automatically assumed they would hate it. And so I talked to my boss about it, and she just getting it out of my head and her being like, why wouldn't they like it? And my only reason was that because I like it. And so I just kind of sat there with my own tap out this week of like, I should be more affirming of my interest. And it really called me out because, you know, I had the staff bonding and they loved it. It was like one of my favorite ones. And so it definitely kind of called me out this week because on paper, like there was no good reason why it wasn't a good game to play, just that I liked it so much. And I wasn't prepared to like be there and them not like it. So it's almost a way of self-sabotage where I like didn't assume they would hate it, you know? And so this week I'm tapping out of self-sabotage, also known as ego protection. I just learned that like last week.
Right.
But I'm trying to protect my ego and protect my ideas of myself. But really it wasn't productive. And so a little more deep, but that's what I was going to tap out of this week.
Oh no, Alex, please tap out, because let me just say, like, no, I think you don't give yourself enough credit. Like, even you doing this podcast, and I've just seen like the way you lead and things like that, even you leading as a freshman and doing 2 Bible studies at once, like that, who does that? You know, like, I just wish that you would affirm yourself more and be more confident, because you are so capable of doing all of these things. And, you know, you're in all these leadership positions like for a reason. And, you know, it's not like they were like, oh, we need to find someone ASAP. Just find the first person. Like it's extended interviews. It's all of these qualifications that they choose. And I think like if you're not confident with the things you're presenting, then they're not going to like, you know, they're going to be like, well, he doesn't even really like it. Or maybe like, you know what I mean? So I just think like, I just really want to affirm you in like every position you're in and just who you are. And like, no, who wouldn't? You have the best ideas, please.
Okay. That's not what I called you here for.
I know, but I just needed to say it. I was like, when you were talking, I was like, what is he talking about? Of course I'll like it.
I'm going to accept that. I received that.
Yes.
Now you have to go. So thank you, Esther, for being here. I will talk to you later.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again to Esther for coming on the show. I love her so much. I'm so happy we could talk about this and people could hear it. I learned so much, and I'm going to definitely listen back to process some things. But In the description, I am going to put some Asian American mental health funds you can be supporting right now if you have the funds. I donated this weekend to the Project Lotus organization. That'll be below, but you can do your own research. I have some links below you can check out if you're interested. Yeah, that's the end of the show, guys. I really have nothing else to say. If you guys want to promote your small business, please reach out to me. It's completely free. Heartofshema@gmail.com or DM me. I'm also always looking for guests. I never actually made a clear axe publicly for guests, but I'm always looking and hunting for different guests to talk to about interesting stuff. So if you feel like you're that person or you know somebody that would love to be on the show, please let them reach out to me. I would love to collaborate and talk about what we could talk about on the show because I love conversations and this is what fuels me. So yes, if you want to hear more about me, what I do, you can follow me on social media at JustAlexToday on Instagram and Twitter. You can email me at heartofshema@gmail.com. I've said that 1,000 times this episode, but that is the email to use. Please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts if you have Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. 5 stars, please. But yes, those reviews really do count a lot to getting the show on the charts and getting it out there. You can find this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, literally everywhere. So you're welcome. I think that's all I have. So yeah, have a good one, guys. Enjoy your week.